From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt. Noel is not here today.
But we'll be returning soon. They call me Ben. We are joined with our super producer, Paul, Mission Control Decant. Maybe for this episode, he is our elder evangelist.
Oh, wow.
Decant. But most importantly, friends and neighbors, conspiracy realists and skeptics alike, welcome to the show. You are you, and you are here, and that makes this stuff they don't want you to know.
That's right. And today we're going to delve into another cult. We've discussed them on this show before, how to start them, how to identify them, how to deprogram yourself from them. Cults are, a troubling but fascinating thing to discuss.
And much more common, especially here in the States, than the average person might guess. There's something very American about cults in the global idea or concept. If you ask somebody in the United Kingdom about a cult, they might tell you something about Charles Manson or Jim Jones,
Yeah, there's something very American about the need or the want to be an independent or breakaway group from a major thing.
Oh, good call, man. I didn't think about that yet.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, this group we're discussing today goes by many names, and we started thinking about this off air when we ran into some strange stories on the edge of the news for the most part. So here's the skinny. We've all heard of dumpster divers or survivalists, other people living off the grid for one reason or another. Often people are driven to this lifestyle through some sort of necessity, maybe poverty, homelessness, escaping law enforcement. Also happens way more often than you would think. Or they may be pursuing a philosophical position. It may just be a temporary situation, a form of vacation. In some cases, however, people are driven by something deeper.
Yeah, that the spiritual movement, a calling, and they'll just latch on to a set of beliefs or find a set of beliefs to be latched onto that compels them to leave just the everyday, mundane, all the stress, the studies, the career, the family, the expenses, everything. Just leave it behind.
Just hit the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hit the old dusty trail and light out for the territories, as Mark Twain was wont to say. So when people disappear because of this spiritual calling, this revelation, right? This imperative from a supernatural force, right? When this happens, for most people, at least most people here in the States, it's just another example of freedom of religion. If you're not hurting anyone, you're allowed to do what you feel like doing, right?
Yeah, if you're over 18, you can move wherever you want to move if it's within the legal constraints of citizenship and everything.
Right, yeah. So if you just decide, if Paul one day, for instance, halfway through this recording says, you know what, done, I'm donezo, I'm out of this, I am going to
Mississippi.
I'm going to Mississippi, I'm only going to wear blue clothes. These are the two things I realized, I'll build the religion around that. Then he can absolutely do that. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with people doing this as individuals or as intentional communities, unless, that is, there's more to the story. But let's start, as the Mad Hatter was rumored to say at the beginning.
Those are rumors?
Yeah, I believe that he doesn't, I don't believe he actually makes that quote. He is also not called the Mad Hatter.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I remember we discussed that on this show before.
Did we?
Yeah. I think we briefly brought that up. The Mad Hatter not actually being the Mad Hatter. He's not that mad.
Just the Hatter,
yeah.
I think. Oh, man.
But he is so he is mad, but he is not the Mad Hatter.
Right, and he's mad because that's an allusion to the mercury, right, used to form hats, the felt of hats. I remember we talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, the past is blurring, a watercolor in the rain.
Ooh.
Thank you. Worked on that one. So here are the facts. We're talking about this group that, according to itself, doesn't really subscribe to the concept of names. You know what I mean?
Correct. It's not about the name.
It's not about the name.
It's the system, man. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. And we would like to introduce you to the leader of the group we're exploring today, Brother Evangelist Jim Roberts.
According to J. Gordon Melton's Encyclopedia of American Religions, this gentleman, Jimmy T. Roberts, was born in Paducah, Kentucky on June 5th, 1939. He was the son of a part-time Pentecostal preacher named Coy Roberts. Mm-hmm. Now, Jimmy was one of 6 siblings, and his family was not very well off. They were impoverished, living in poverty. And Coy couldn't seem to hold a steady job. This is the father, Jimmy's father. Mm-hmm. And most of the family's income came from the mother, Mrs. Roberts' job down at the town drugstore.
Absolutely, Matt. And for the Roberts family, we see that the idea of material gain it's not the primary focus of their lives. The primary focus of their lives seems to be religion or a spiritual calling. Both parents are deeply religious. We mentioned that the father was a part-time Pentecostal preacher. He was at a place called the Church of Jesus Christ. Granted, not the most creative name. It was a small independent church pastored by a man named Irby Reed. And Jim's mother was a member of an anti-Trinitarian United Pentecostal Church.
And we'll discuss what that means a little later.
Yeah, I thought of you when I was reading some of this stuff. I knew you were going to be our go-to pick.
Yeah.
To explain this, because you know some of the doctrinal differences there.
It's a bit strange, but we'll get to it.
So Jim himself was preaching by the age of 15, and Irby Reed's relative recalls him at a very young age saying, "Hell is hot and there's no ice water."
Oh, man, just such an observation.
I think it gives us a sense of the type of oration he was presenting.
Yeah, it's a simple image that he's giving you. There's something that you won't be able to have while you're in this place that's really bad, so you got to keep yourself away from it.
And also, it is a fire and brimstone message. It's very much like that early American work, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God.
Yes.
It's dwelling not on the good stuff, the nice things that might happen, or the glory, the kingdom of heaven. It's dwelling on the punishments and the dangers.
It's that stick.
Mm-hmm.
This is really interesting as we're getting into this a little later, what Jim's views are, or the way he shaped his beliefs about spirituality.
Yeah, he kept this consistent theme. He was also a smart kid. He was the only child in his family to finish high school, and we're not equating intelligence necessarily one-to-one with going through an educational system successfully. As anyone who has experience with rural America or rural parts of the world will know, often very, very intelligent children are not able to participate in the education system because they have to work on maybe an agricultural field or somehow provide income for their family. But despite these obstacles, Jim Roberts made it out of Paducah. In 1958, he joined the Marine Corps. He became a sergeant. He served until 1961, and he was a Vietnam veteran. He returned to civil life, and he moved around the United States working a number of jobs. He ended up in Chicago with a chance at the American dream version of life in the 60s,
He found love.
He found love, and he thought, is this my chance to have a spouse, my 2.5 kids, my 9-to-5 job for a few decades with the gold watch at the end?
You don't get those anymore. He probably would have.
Yeah.
At that time.
But the answer is no. His romance failed, and around the same time, he encountered a very eccentric group known as the Jesus People. on the north side of Chicago in a neighborhood called Uptown.
Yeah, it's one of those intentional communities. There, you might find a few around. I know in Atlanta there are several you can go and visit. Just a group of like-minded people living together.
How do we describe them in a previous episode, these sorts of communities? Just people who are extremely on the same page
Yeah, exactly.
about very specific things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that a spiritual, intentional community is just not going to care about.